Welcome back to another Inspiration Sunday interview. I am so happy to have you, and I am so lucky and excited to have Kate with us today. She is a nutritional healing coach who focuses on exactly what we're talking about, nutritional healing. So I would love to have you, Kate, explain what exactly it is that you do and why is it so important?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. So what I really do is I look at the often neglected area of people's general well-being with a particular focus on nutrition. So I've also trained as a herbalist and as a personal trainer and fitness coach. So I try to bring all that into it as well. But my main focus is very much nutrition. We are what we eat. And that often gets forgotten. So I really look at how we can use diet to really improve our overall sort of vitality, to get energy back, and really sort of to get through our day in the best possible way.
Yes, definitely. And so, how did you get started with this? Like, was this kind of a natural progression, or was it kind of an all of a sudden I'm inspired to do this? How did that come about?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd always loved herbal medicine. My grandparents were herbalists, and they sort of taught me a lot about that, foraging for herbs. They also grew a lot of their own food. But I really got into that. I trained as a herbalist. But what I found when I was sort of giving out herbal remedies, a lot of people were unfortunately living a very unhealthy lifestyle, and they saw herbal remedies as a sort of magic bullet to cure it. So I can just have this herbal tea and then go home to my McDonald's and I'll be fine. Yeah. And it doesn't really work like that. So that was really why I got into nutrition, because herbal remedies and anything like that don't really work if you don't have the overall package. And I just found that nutrition really was the most important component in that. So I trained as a nutritionist.
Oh, that's so true. It's so funny how people think that they, I come from a teaching manifestation kind of a background. And so people, same kind of, very different, but kind of the same. They think, oh, well, I'll just repeat this affirmation and I'll, everything will be fine. And it's like, well, no, because you can't just sit and watch Netflix all night and not actually do, like, your business isn't going to start itself. You have to. So your calling really came from a desire to educate and help people make their lives better, in a well-rounded, kind of a lasting way, rather than people coming to you for kind of a quick fix. Is that right?
Yeah, very much. I really want to, empower people to take control of their own healing, and not to sort of to always, be looking for someone else to tell them what to do. I really want to educate people with that. Where I actually studied my nutrition, our teacher always said that, the goal is to get our clients to fire us because we want to teach them.
I love that. So what do you find in your line of work? What's the most common kind of, I don't know, issues that come up among your clients? What's the most common thing you see?
I think sort of weight loss is a big one. That's why I've devoted a lot of time to kind of specialist training in that, because a lot of people they feel that they don't really know what to do. They've tried all sorts of fad diets, and funnily enough, that didn't work.
Imagine
just a real yeah. Lack of energy is such a common one. So many people really struggle with that, and often it's just there's a lot of mindset issues as well, where people sort of know what they should be doing, but they just don't have the motivation to stick with it. That's a really big thing as well.
Yeah, I see that a lot too. I think everybody, it's a classic. I know what I should do. I'm not doing it, and it's like, well, nobody can do it for you though. So, but let's go back to the energy thing for a second, because I know that that's something that a ton of people in my world too, they struggle with. I'm talking to mums and busy women who are running families and businesses and working, and they think, well, the last thing I have time for is one more this or an interview or I can't possibly create this course I want to create because I don't have time. And really what I think, I mean, partly it's prioritizing and mindset, but it is energy too. Is there any kind of, I don't want to say quick answers, but kind of keys to building up lasting energy that people can start to incorporate into their life to get more out of their day?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it does vary from person to person. It does depend, but very often it's one of the most common reasons is simply that it's hormone imbalance, and very often that is caused by just poor diet choices. Really, it's a lack of fresh vegetables. Lots of junk food. It's all the things that we know about, exercise as well. A lot of people, they're either obviously not exercising enough, but also often they're doing the wrong things, spending too much time on cardio, not enough strength training, things like that really can unbalance the hormones, and that really leads to a lot of energy, a loss of energy. Also poor, microbiome in the gut. That's another one that you see an awful lot of, which has a knock-on effect as well, really lowering energy.
And I've heard that before. Is that the microbiome thing? Is that related more to diet, or is there many factors that go into that?
Yeah, I mean, there are other factors, particularly medication and things like that. But the main thing is diet. The same thing that's good for us is good for the bacteria in our guts. And unfortunately, they start starving when we eat too many burgers and sugar. Right. So yes, that's the main issue. Too much sugary food as well as nutrient timing as well. People are snacking an awful lot, and that again tends to lead to an energy spike and then consequent crashing. So
right.
So yeah.
Well, and that would play into the weight loss. That would play into the weight loss issue too, I would imagine, right? The microbiome and the snacking at weird times. And I mean, of course, what you eat is more than half the battle right there. My husband is a personal trainer too, and he says to people, it's not so much about how you're working out. It starts with what you're eating, because if you're not eating well, you're not treating your body well, I mean, you're basically wasting your time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't out-train a bad diet.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's a good saying. So when it comes to the mindsets, I mean, you obviously have worked with clients now. You've got a good understanding of kind of the common connections, the common themes between what people are struggling with. Do you notice is there kind of like one or two kind of core limiting beliefs or mindsets that you find in clients, or does it vary quite a bit?
Yeah, I would say so. A sort of an attitude of self-blame comes up a lot, where people seem to think they just don't have the willpower to sort of follow through on everything, because they can't stick to their goals. They have all these, I'm not going to eat really healthily, and then they rush up to the cupboard and have a bag of chips or whatever. But I think a lot of people don't sort of realize enough that willpower, it's a muscle. It gets tired, especially throughout the day. It wears out, and often there's a lack of understanding as well about just generally food addiction. People think it's all their fault because they just don't have the willpower. But the chemical effect that food has on our brains, it's like an addictive drug. In fact, in some studies, it's worse. So it's important not to keep, for people to blame themselves, and to realize that, it's not all about the willpower. You really have to look sometimes for the underlying sort of emotional reasons for eating. And then there are various sort of brain hacks, if you like, that we sort of look at that we can sort of help, to overcome that.
Yeah. And when you're working with your clients to help improve their metabolic state and their physical well-being, what are the long-term effects? Like obviously you and I know how important it is to make yourself a priority, because no matter what you do, whether you're running a business or a family or working or anything, none of it is going to work if you are not taking care of yourself. We really do need to prioritize ourselves first. So what have you seen what are the long-term benefits of looking at this stuff and tackling and really taking on the sugar addiction? I know is a very real thing. The sugar addictions and the, overcoming the bad eating habits and the snacking too late on the wrong things. And like, what if somebody needed motivation to kind of look at this stuff and really take it seriously and put themselves on the right track, what are the long-term benefits they can look forward to?
Yeah. I mean, there are so many. I think once people really get into a right place with the diet and so on, they do start finding they have much more energy. So then their mood really improves. I think a lot of people don't realize that they've got into a bit of a bad place until it really improves, and then they realize all these things they were so stressed over weren't really that serious. And so I think, people find they have a lot more time then to maybe, if they're running a business, that becomes a lot easier when they're feeling much better, they're in a better mood, and obviously, connecting with their family and all of these things. And a lot, I think, there was in a lot of ways, life becomes a lot easier when you've actually, taken the time to sort yourself out first. Yeah.
Agreed. And what's so funny is a lot of what you were just saying overlaps with a lot of things that I say, because I mean, the old saying is true. How you do one thing is how you do all things. And, obviously we all have different issues that we need to look at. We have different underlying feelings of unworthiness or whatever that need to be addressed. We have different vices we need to deal with. Some people are looking at it from, some people come into taking care of themselves from just wanting to make more money. And then that leads them to, which is what happened to me. Make more money leads me to entrepreneurship, which leads me to spirituality, which leads me to where I am now, and so, but how you do one thing is how you do all things. And so what you're saying about really prioritizing yourself and taking better care of, the things you eat and the way you treat your body, and how that plays off into how much better life gets to be. And like you say, you get more time for your family. And it's like, well, some people are going to think, well, wait a minute, if I'm spending more time, prepping healthier food, because some people will say the reason they don't eat healthy is because it takes too long to prepare, right? But if I'm spending more time, preparing good food, and I'm spending more time working out, and I'm taking a yoga class, and I'm, going for more walks, and I'm doing this, that's actually taking up more time. But in reality, you're not now, like a lot of the time, I think that part of that it's really a low vibration state of being is where people come to you probably from, whether they realize it or not. And a lot of that is because they're being fed into, or they're allowing themselves to be spewed all of this like programming and societal, you have to do this, and you need to watch this show, and you have to binge watch this thing, and you have to, no, working out is too hard. It's, it takes too much time. Who has time to go to the gym? And it's like, well, no, when you prioritize yourself, and like you say, when you treat, and I don't know scientifically things about the gut, but I know that the gut well-being is so important for the overall well-being. And so I know that when you are working on improving your internal state, you raise your vibration. And when you raise your vibration, like you say, it's easier to handle things that were stressing you out. You realize, well, that really wasn't that big of a deal. Actually, I kind of made that worse than it needed to be. Or when something stressful, or I guess when something that you would have perceived as stressful comes your way now, you can go, well, no, like, whatever, we'll just deal with it and move on. And it's just funny that how you do one thing is how you do all things. And really the ultimate goal for you and I separately and together is really to help people raise their vibration.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think so many people don't think enough about their own health until something goes really wrong. And that's when they then try and fix it. You think, well, actually, you would have saved yourself so much time if you just, prioritized it in the first place.
No, that is so true. And it's funny, like you say, when you get a really bad cold or a stomach flu or something, you're just like, you don't realize how good you felt until you don't feel good. And you're like, oh, well, I totally took that for granted. Or a couple of years ago, I had a really bad, my sciatic nerve flared up really badly, which I realized underlying problem was stress and taking on too many things and but I'm not gonna, it doesn't matter. But part of the problem was I was not prioritizing my well-being. I was not stretching. I was not, doing any of the things that I know I should be doing. So now I have to start at a deficit, basically, right? And I'm trying to stretch and do all these yoga things and tennis ball this and stretching that and using the wall. And it's like, this is stupid. Like if I had just prioritized stretching and doing like daily things that are good for your overall well-being anyway, I would not have been, not only would the sciatic nerve not have flared up, but the underlying like emotional issue that triggered the sciatic pain wouldn't have happened either. It's so funny that people just don't think about this stuff until, like you say, it's too late. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't necessarily want to go all the way down the conspiracy theory tunnel right now, but there's a lot of things that society feeds us that makes it seem like it's normal to be in pain, and it's normal to take all these pills, and it's normal to feel old at 30, and it's, all this stuff. It's like, no, none of that is the way it should be. Like that must make you crazy. All of that must make you totally nuts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is, no, it is maddening.
I can't even imagine in your line of work. So when somebody, okay, let's go this route. How do you determine if somebody is in the right mindset to start working with you or not? Like, what are the key factors for you when you're having your initial conversation with these people? I mean, obviously, I imagine there's some interaction before you actually take them on as a client. What are the key giveaways that they are or are not ready to move forward and actually make the changes, or that they'll be successful in the long run?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to start with them doing a bit of diary work, finding out where they are now, what their sort of meal habits are like, and so on. And then, so I can really look at them. And then, I mean, I always sort of, suggest a few little changes and sort of do the classic coaching question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how open are you to changing this? And it really needs to be a 10. And I find, people usually seem to fall into one camp or the other. You get a lot of people, and often, strangely enough, it's the people who have sort of picked up the most unhealthy habits, if you like. They're very aware of it, and they're sort of, they really, they know they need to change. But yes, then you get the other sort of people who get rather defensive about it and sort of, well, I don't really have time, and I don't think it's that bad, and they sort of, okay, maybe come back when you're a bit more open.
A little more dedicated. Because, but you know what? Yeah. That kind of leads back to something that I see a lot too, which is where people, I think this is just kind of like human nature. We need to, if we're not going to listen to the little nudges, we eventually just get pushed right off the cliff, right? So the people who have the most bad habits, either, I would imagine, I don't know, you can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine either have had some kind of like realization, maybe a scare in the family, maybe they just kind of like woke up one day and went, oh my God, like, look how much sugar I'm putting in my coffee or something like that. Or they have had that nudge off the cliff or the shove, sorry. And they're just like, okay, you know what? Like, this cannot happen anymore. I cannot be this way. Whereas the people who are defensive, they've obviously had a nudge to at least be in your world, but they're not willing to take responsibility yet. They would rather it be somebody else's fault, probably.
Yeah. There are, exactly, as you say. And some of these people, they sort of just want me to tell them to just do this and then you'll be fine. But of course, you're not going to stick to that to the long term. And yes, very often what it is that really nudges them into knowing they have to change. It's sadly, as we say, that's when either their own health really starts to break down, or a family member, and it really gives them a wake up call.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's too bad. And that must be so frustrating for you too, right? Because from the outside, you're just like, no, like it would, I mean, in theory, there are probably some simple fixes. It's just like start, and start slowly even. I think, well, this is probably something you see a lot. People try to go from no physical activity, no, I don't even like the word diet. I prefer, I think you probably will agree with me 100% that a diet is a complete waste of time. You have to change your lifestyle. Like you have to become the person who is healthy, right? You can't just, I'll just eat celery for 4 days and I'll be, a water cleanse. Like, well, that's good, but then after the 4 days, you're going to go back to McDonald's and then, you're in the same boat. So, yeah, I can just imagine how frustrating it is for you to know that like, it would just be a simple, like add 5 minutes of this. And then in another week, add another 5 minutes. And then in another 2 weeks, just cut an extra, cut your sugar in half, like take it slowly, but people don't want to, they want, like you said, either they want it quickly now or they don't want it at all, but they don't realize that if you do it quickly right now, it's not, you haven't actually become the person who is healthy.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, that is so true. I think it's because people wait until, they get some sort of terrible health scare and then they think, oh no, I've got to completely change my lifestyle. And they really do. They try and do, I've got to do this and this and this and this. And of course they don't stick to it, which just confirms their opinion that they have no willpower. And it's like, no, it's not that. It's like you've taken the first step. You're doing the right thing by trying to change. Now we just need to gradually introduce lasting habits.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is the key then, right? Gradually introducing kind of habit stacking and one thing at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And even if it's just one thing, for a couple of weeks, once it becomes a habit, then it becomes easy.
Yeah, well, exactly. And do you find that there's a bit of a ripple effect with that? Like whatever I imagine you probably start with one kind of core, and probably it's a diet. I would imagine like cutting sugar out, at least, like even just cutting sugar out, I imagine would make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it really does, especially because, it gives people the motivation. We'll try and, start with something that they feel they can definitely achieve. So they then know that they can do it. And the more sort of healthy habits we can introduce, the more they start to feel better. They notice the results, but also that really helps with that sort of willpower. Because when you're feeling really sort of crabby and awful, that's when you start reaching for the really unhealthy food because it just picks you up. So when you've got more energy and that's really going to help with your next habit. It might be a bit more difficult. So
definitely. Yeah. And I would imagine too, is it true that like when you cut out one thing, I think you said it is easier for them to incorporate the next thing. And is that, I guess partly it's built like flexing that willpower muscle, but probably partly they realize, well, I've put all this work in to changing this one thing. Like, let's go with the cutting out sugar. If I cut out sugar and I've done all this work to cut out the sugar and I do feel better and I have more energy, I don't really want to sit here and waste it watching Netflix. I would rather go out and use some of this energy to my advantage and go for, maybe not an 8-hour hike right away, but get outside in nature more. They've got more, probably their whole, well, like we said, the vibration raises, right? Sugar, I know, is so bad for your vibration and for your energy and for your mind. And just, okay, can you just, for a second, like talk about how bad sugar is so people understand, like you really need to be looking at your sugar intake. It's so terrible.
Well, absolutely. It does pretty appalling things. Obviously, your insulin levels then spike, desperate attempts to store it, but that leads to your cells becoming resistant over time. So obviously, the end result is serious conditions like diabetes. But in the meantime, it's not doing your brain any good. Most of your internal organs do not like the excess of sugar at all. it does terrible things for your energy because it's going to be going up and down like a little zigzag. And obviously it also gets stored as fat, particularly around the belly area, which actually ends up then reaching poison into your system, which is lovely. Yeah, it's not something we want at all.
No. And it's funny what you're saying, because I live in Nicaragua right now, and you would be appalled, actually, Kate, at the amount of pop or soda or whatever you guys call it that they drink here. It is cheaper to buy pop than it is to buy water. I think that's true probably anywhere, but they don't have good quality drinking water, so they are drinking. Like, I've seen little kids walking with 2-liter pops at like 8 o'clock in the morning, but that's just the way they're raised. It's not their fault. And the adults, it's the way they were raised, and they're programmed to believe it's not that bad. And I know some of the companies have gone to like natural cane sugar, but it's like, it's still sugar. And so what I've noticed is so many of the locals have that giant big belly from all of, I mean, probably they're sitting around maybe more than they should too, because it's very hot. But also, if you're ingesting all that sugar, you don't have the energy to get up and walk around anyway. You're going to sit there and just drink more pop, because now you're addicted to the sugar too.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's been shown it's more addictive than cocaine or heroin. So it's very real, sugar addiction.
Yeah,
can cause dreadful, unpleasant withdrawal symptoms in people. And the more you have, the worse it's going to get. So the sooner you can break that habit, the better.
What have you seen with people trying to break the sugar addiction? What have you noticed is kind of the time that it takes to kind of wean yourself off and then get to the point where you actually don't? I mean, it's probably different for everybody a little bit, right? I would imagine there's a range probably.
Yeah. But it's actually surprising how quickly you can actually reset a lot of things in your body. Like, most hormones only take about 72 hours to actually reset. So some people find with food addictions, it's surprising how quickly you can get over them. I mean, one thing is you really do have to just cut them out entirely. A lot of people think if they reduce it, it will be easier. And, some people sort of can try that, but mostly if it's a real addiction, it's better to clear the whole house out. Don't have any of it at all, because that will then really help to actually, reset the body. But it depends. Some people then find, after a few days without sugar, they stop craving it. In other people, it could be a few weeks. But the health benefits then really start, can start coming quite quickly, which, gives people more motivation. So yeah,
definitely.
It's well worth
That's
doing.
interesting. Yeah, definitely. I didn't realize it was only 72 hours. For the hormones reset, that's amazing. The body is a crazy, crazy thing too. I know we are meant, right, to filter our own, to take care of ourselves if you give it the right. I mean, that must be exactly why you do what you do, right? Because if you just treat your body the way that it was naturally meant to be, it does all of those things for you. And then you don't need all of the things that the pharmaceutical companies are trying to sell you, right?
Yeah.
That you must just be it. Oh my God. I can't even imagine how crazy all of it must make you, just all of it. Oh my goodness. That's so funny. So I would love to hear, I know you said that you fell into this by wanting to educate people, but what has your journey in entrepreneurship been? I mean, obviously I can imagine, anybody who pursues entrepreneurship, it's not an easy task, especially if we're surrounded by family and friends and, people who think you should do it, a certain way and you should be this and should be that. So there's that aspect. But then on top of it, you're teaching and coaching people on something that a lot of people not even don't agree with, but don't want to hear. Right? Like there's probably a lot of people who are going to just totally say no way just because they want to eat McDonald's and they want to have the sugar and they don't want to prioritize themselves. So what was the path for you like? How did you, and I'm sure there was some hiccups along the way. What did that look like for you?
Yeah,
It's never peaches and roses. That's, I know. So
no, not at all. Especially because when I originally started doing the coaching was sort of in person, and I started at the beginning of 2020, so that went well. Because then October was in lockdown for about 18 months here, so I thought, well, I'll see that as an opportunity then. So I'll set it up online. And I realized that actually worked much better because, as you say, a lot of people don't want to hear what you have to say. So by doing it online, I could then obviously spread my net much more widely. Yeah, so that's how I set up the online section of it. And again, started doing my sort of the one-to-one coaching. But again, that can be a bit limiting because then obviously finding, times that people can do, and there's only so many people that you can help that way. So that's why I've now sort of got into the idea of setting up a group program that we can then we can go through together. So yeah, and I've just been sort of learning from all the different people that I've seen, sort of trying to understand what people's priorities are, because sometimes you think it's going to be one thing and you think, oh no, actually, okay, everyone wants to do with this instead. Okay, so yeah, there's been a lot of trial and error with that, finding out where people want to focus.
Yeah, it's funny too with that aspect, because I too have been, I was going at one direction that I thought was the right direction, and then I was like, well, no, I mean, you can still, as you know, you can still go that direction, but you have to talk about it in the direction that they are listening, right? Like if you're trying to sell them, if you're trying to convince them, and not even convince them, that's the wrong word. If you're trying to educate people on the benefits of X, Y, and Z, but they're over here thinking about something else, well, you have to talk about it related to this thing that they're thinking about to pull their attention, to give them the breadcrumbs to educate them, because a lot of people are not scrolling through social media looking for ways to cut sugar out, for example. I mean, some people are, definitely. It's not like there's not, and you want to obviously help the high intent clients too, but a lot of what I think is so important about what you do is the education aspect, because so many people just don't know. They just, for just lack of knowledge, lack of interest, lack of, the people surrounding them aren't of the right mindset. And of course, you probably see this a lot. If the person you're trying to help is surrounded by people who don't want to change, I mean, how much harder is it then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Something you talk about a lot, how to get the family on board. Yes, because it really doesn't help if you've got them sitting around, eating loads of sugar around you. But
right,
education can really help with that as well. To get everyone involved. Absolutely, for sure. So you started in 2020 then, so you've been in business for about 2.5-ish years. Yeah.
And what were you doing before that?
So I was mostly running my little products-based business. I also make natural skincare. So I still have that, going online as well. But it all sort of focuses on local ingredients and sustainable packaging and all safe, non-toxic ingredients. So.
Wow. So you've been like fully entrepreneur for a while. That's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I suppose so. I didn't really think of myself as an entrepreneur, but then I thought, actually, I started my first little craft business when I was at uni, but I just sort of carried on from there.
That's awesome. So have you ever had a traditional real job, or have you been self-employed the whole time?
Yeah, no, I've always been self-employed.
That's amazing.
I think having started that way, I just I don't really like the idea of working for someone else.
That's so amazing. That's so rare that you see somebody who right out of the gate is self-employed and then sustains it in a way that works, like that's so cool. You must love what you do. Obviously, you're obviously very good at it.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, you must be, right?
Yes, I do. I mean, I love it. As I say, I've always been passionate about, helping people through the power of plants, whether that's through natural skincare, through nutrition, through herbalism. It's all connected.
Oh, I love it. I do. Is there maybe a book on the horizon somewhere too?
I am sort of planning one, so
Somewhere off in the
yeah,
distance?
maybe,
Yeah.
hopefully.
That's awesome. Well, that's so awesome. I'm excited for that. And I love everything that you do. It's important. I think so many people would benefit so much from understanding better how their body works and how to better treat it. And I mean, obviously you do too, but that's why I wanted to bring you in here, because I really think it's important that people get to know the best ways to sustain yourself, because, like I say, and my husband has reminded me over the years too, right? Like, all of what you're building is no good if you don't take care of yourself. Like, if you're not at the end to see it through, then it all goes to shit anyway. So what's the point, right? You have to prioritize yourself and you have to take good care of your body. And that starts with what you put into it and on it and around it and, everything. And like you say, all of that affects how you think, how you feel, how you interact with the world, how you show up, and I mean, obviously, that I'm here to help other women discover what they're here to do, right? And they can't do that if they're not taking good care of themselves, right? It just doesn't work that way. So I would love it if you would share with us where people can find you. What are you doing right now? Where can they find you and how can they work with you?
Absolutely. So I have a website, which is Journey to Joy Coaching.co.uk. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. You can again find me, Journey to Joy Coaching UK. I am currently running a couple of free sort of offerings. I've got a free challenge that's just about to start now on rethinking your habits. So that is tips on sort of, improving your general nutrition and fitness, and you can apply it to really your goals and anything that you want to get done.
Amazing.
And then I've got a free webinar that's coming up soon as well, all about sort of hormone balancing. So you can find all the details of all of it. It's on my website and on my Instagram.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that. I'll make sure that I'll jot the link down and I'll put it, I'll go back and I'll edit the description of the video so I can add it for people can follow you. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Those are great. And so important. All of it. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here with us today. I so appreciate it. Everything you bring to the table is so important. I think everybody should go and hang out in Kate's corner of the world, because she's working from the inside out, right? If you're not in balance and you're not taking care of what you're putting in and on and around you, then, like I said, it all goes to shit anyway. So there's no point. So you should be taking good care of yourself, prioritizing yourself, and Kate's a good place to start. So thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you, Kate, for being here. I so appreciate it. And I'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.